investigation. Comey is charged with giving a false statement and obstruction of a congressional proceeding relating to the testimony he gave before the Senate Judiciary Committee 5 years ago. This indictment comes just days after the president publicly demanded it, and shortly after the person the president had picked to be the U.S. attorney in this office quit. And the new U.S. attorney, 3 days into that job, did what the president had wanted to happen only 5 days before the statute of limitations was set to run out. Tonight, the president is celebrating, writing in all caps on Truth Social, quote, "Justice in America. One of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to is James Coney, the former corrupt head of the FBI. Today, he was indicted by a grand jury on 2 felony counts for various illegal and unlawful acts. He has been so bad for our country for so long and is now at the beginning of being held responsible for his crimes against our nation." The president ended his post with "Make America Great Again." This comes as I'm told by sources tonight that James Coney is expected to surrender tomorrow morning. We'll be watching, obviously, that appearance very closely. But the former director of the FBI has already made quite clear tonight that he's prepared to fight these charges.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump. But we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
Comey saying he's prepared for this to go to trial. We'll see if that happens. And of course, this comes after the president had made no secret of his plan to try to make this day happen when he was running for re-election. So much so that I actually asked former director James Coney about this more than a year ago and whether or not he thought this day would ever come. Do you believe that Donald Trump will come after you personally if he's reelected?
Maybe. I mean, he spent 4 years coming after me. I think all I ended up with was a $400 tax refund, which is great. I guess I overpaid my taxes. I don't worry about me. I have the resources and the friends, and I know how things work. I can defend myself. I really worry about the people who have less of that than I do, the people making the cases, the career civil servants who are prosecutors and judges who are the bedrock of our rule of law. They are the people who will be most at threat.
I want to get straight to CNN's senior justice correspondent, Evan Perez, who's following this closely. Evan, obviously we've seen this indictment now. It's just about 2 pages. It's quite brief, actually. As you combed through it, what stood out to you?
Yeah, no, the bare bones nature of this charge, of this indictment really stands out. And what we know about it, Caitlin, is that Lindsay Halligan, who is the newly installed U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, she is the one who personally presented this to the grand jury. That's not normal. Usually you have career assistant U.S. attorneys who make these presentations to the grand jury. In this case, we know that there were concerns that were raised by the career lawyers in that office who did not believe that this was a case that they could bring to fruition. And so what we have here is 2 counts against the former FBI director, an extraordinary day in American history, of course. But we also know that there was a 3rd count that prosecutors had tried to get approval for that the grand jury rejected. We know that what was rejected, according to the magistrate judge, was a count of false statements in the jurisdiction of a congressional proceeding and obstruction of a congressional proceeding. And so those 2 carry 5-year terms if he is convicted. Of course, we're a long way from there, and we know that Comey, as he says in his video statement there, is planning to fight this. We also have a statement from his personal lawyer, Pat Fitzgerald, who says Jim Comey denies the charges filed today in their entirety. We look forward to vindicating him in the courtroom. And so that process begins tomorrow in earnest, as your reporting indicates. He's going to be surrendering in the federal court there in Alexandria, and then we'll see how this case fares before a judge and before eventually perhaps a jury.
Yeah, and so since he's expected to surrender tomorrow, I just think for everyone watching, there are some people complaining on the right that he's not being arrested. The agents aren't showing up at his house to arrest him as a result of this. What is tomorrow going to look like? What are you going to be watching for as the next steps happen here over what was so clearly telegraphed by the president himself here?
Yeah, look, I mean, your reporting, which indicates that he's going to be allowed to surrender, is actually a very big deal because, as you pointed out, people on the right, they want him picked up like Roger Stone was and other people were. And look, what usually happens in these cases, in normal cases, is that someone who, like him, is not a flight risk, is not believed to have any plans to flee, is given the opportunity to surrender themselves, and so that is being handled in the normal course that it is. They've been in touch with his lawyers, and they know what is going to happen. Now, we expect that he's going to be released on his own recognizance, and then this trial will begin. This case will begin in earnest. Here's the thing: the fact that the President of the United States has made so crystal clear what he wants in this case has done some damage, and the briefs from Pat Fitzgerald and the lawyers kind of right themselves, right? Because the president has made clear that he was ordering this prosecution, and we know from our own reporting and what's out there that prosecutors in the office had some concerns. We also know that Lindsey Halligan, who was just brought there in the office, was the one who had to personally present this case to the grand jury. So all of that stuff will come rushing back as part of the story, as part of the case, as this goes forward.
Yeah, Evan Perez, as you learn more, obviously, throughout the hour, we'll check back in with you and our team. Thank you for that reporting.
Sure.
My legal sources are here tonight. We've got Elliot Williams, Judge Jill Conviser, and Ellie Honig, three of the best voices on this. And Elliot Williams, I want to start with you because I just want to read some reporting from my colleague, Caitlin Polance, who says that a court record has made public what the grand jury voted no on, what Evan was just referencing there in terms of a potential third charge here, and that was on another alleged false statement to Congress. As Caitlin notes in her reporting here, she says that's a very unusual occurrence in the federal court system. And this is not part of the indictment, but according to the record, it pinpoints Comey's answer when he was asked about an alleged plan from Hillary Clinton during the 2016 campaign. He had testified to Lindsey Graham back in 2020, given this was 5 years ago, people probably don't recall this, that didn't ring any bells with him. Graham had told him about this alleged plan, about distracting from her use of an email server. It is something that obviously conservatives have talked about at length. And I wonder what you make of the fact that the grand jury said yes on two of these charges, but no on that third charge there.
Right. It's a notable occurrence anytime the grand jury does not reject a charge. Now, it's certainly not a rubber stamp for the work of prosecutors, but for the most part, when prosecutors go to the grand jury, they come back with charges. Now, what it appears, I think the logical conclusion to draw from it is that the grand jury simply did not believe there was probable cause to find that the offense was committed. Now, there might have been evidence to suggest that Jim Comey had knowledge there, but really, what needed to be established was that he knew his statement was false and still made it anyway. That is the big wrinkle here and is going to apply across all the other charges in this case. Not simply that there was a statement that people didn't like or that was ambiguous or had some gray area, but that he knew he was making a falsehood, a material falsehood, and still went ahead and made it anyway. Those can sometimes be hard to prove, and I would assume that the grand jury just assumed they didn't have it here.
Well, Ellie Honig, what's your take on that, given, as Caitlin Polance, who knows the justice system well and the federal court system well, she says it's unusual. Just how unusual is it?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to lose even one count in a grand jury, Caitlin, and that shows me that prosecutors already have overextended and have already been called out to an extent by the grand jury rejecting that one count. Now, stepping back to the actual indictment, when Donald Trump put up his social media post over the weekend, it was a line that was crossed. We had a president directly ordering DOJ to indict one of his political opponents. Then we saw other indicators that there might be problems with this indictment. The fact that it went nearly to the end of the 5-year statute of limitations on an area that's been looked at exhaustively and nobody has seen fit to charge it. The fact that the sitting U.S. attorney who Donald Trump put in place, an experienced prosecutor, had problems with the case. The reported fact that Todd Blanche had problems with this case. I was willing to keep an open mind and give it the benefit of the doubt. And when this indictment came out, this thing is decrepit. This thing is, I don't think, going to reach a jury. And if it does, I think they're going to reject it. It all comes down to this allegation that Jim Comey lied when he said that he had not authorized a leak. And what this does is it hits Jim Comey's word on the one hand against Andy McCabe's word on the other hand. The government is going to have to prove that Andy McCabe is telling the truth beyond a reasonable doubt. This isn't just a he said. They're going to have to carry their burden beyond a reasonable doubt. And I also want to add, it's possible that neither of them was lying, because this is going to get in the weeds for a minute, but I'm going to show you why this indictment is going to fail. Jim Comey said, I did not authorize the leak. Andy McCabe said, I authorized the leak and told Jim Comey about it the day after. Those could both be true. In other words, Jim Comey could have said, I didn't authorize the leak in advance. If he learns about it after, that's not necessarily authorizing it. So it's possible that neither of them is lying. This indictment is indecipherable. It's a mess. I'd be shocked if it gets to a jury and if a jury ends up convicting beyond a reasonable doubt.
And Ellie, that's a really crucial point, because essentially you're saying that could it be a ask for forgiveness instead of permission situation. But what you're talking about there, and where Andrew McCabe, who was Comey's deputy at the time, revealed that was in an inspector general investigation, an independent watchdog investigation that was done under the Trump administration when Trump was in office the last time.
Exactly, in 2018. And again, it is quite possible. If you're the boss of an organization and somebody comes to you and says, hey boss, I authorized the leak after the fact, right? So someone comes to you and says, hey boss, yesterday I authorized the leak. Would you consider that to be you as the boss authorizing it? I wouldn't. I would say, well, I didn't authorize that. So they could both be telling the truth here. And yes, this whole incident has been studied in depth. There's a long report from the OIG, the Inspector General of the Justice Department in 2018. John Durham, who was desperate to indict anybody in his special counsel investigation, looked at this and did not return indictments. There's a reason that everybody has passed on this up till now.
And it was John Durham who was put in that position by Bill Barr, Trump's Attorney General. And so obviously that has raised so many questions here. Judge, I have to get your take, because as Ellie described it as decrepit, I'm sure the Justice Department might take issue with that. But when you look at the indictment, it's 2 pages. Count 1 not only charges Comey with making a false statement, but this is the language for people who haven't read it. It says he willfully and knowingly made a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement. Some people might see that and say, that reads like a Truth Social post. Is that typical language in an indictment to you?
It is. It can be typical. They generally track the language of the statute, federal statute, and then try to put in bare bones when they don't have to put more than they have to put in. And they did that here, and they are referring with that language to whether or not McCabe was told to be an anonymous source about this information. So I don't think the indictment itself tells us all that much. What will tell us, or what at least what a judge will hear, a judge is going to review the grand jury minutes. They will review the process. They will review the evidence before the grand jury. They will read and see what the evidence was, what the witnesses said, to determine whether or not that with which was presented to the grand jury was appropriate. There's an expression, you can indict a ham sandwich. And it's true, there's almost no occasion where a prosecutor goes in where a case doesn't end up with a true bill. It does happen, but it's rare. The fact that 1 or 2 counts were crossed out here doesn't tell me all that much. What tells me more is that this case is 5 years old. It has been looked at every which way, and that it took a threatening Truth Social post by the president to get a brand new U.S. attorney with no experience to go in and present this case. So a judge is going to look at this with the microscope they should and make a determination whether what was presented to the grand jury was appropriate to reach what is a very low standard before the grand jury. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and Elliot, the judge mentions what the president posted over the weekend. I think there's some confusion over this. Yes, he posted it. He did delete it, but then he reposted it with more added on, essentially. But I also want everyone to listen to what President Trump said in his own words this weekend about the case.
I just want people to act. They have to act. And we want to act fast. You know, they were ruthless and vicious. I was impeached twice. I was indicted 5 times. It turned out to be a fake deal. And we have to act fast. One way or the other. One way or the other. They're guilty. They're not guilty. We have to act fast. If they're not guilty, that's fine. If they are guilty or if they should be charged, they should be charged. And we have to do it now.
Elliot, the view from people that I've spoken with is, well, look how many times Trump was prosecuted and people charged him. Like either he'll be guilty or he won't be. I wonder what you make of that mindset that a lot of Trump's allies have tonight.
Perfectly fine to have that view. The president there, however, just put on a clinic for how to get a case tossed out for being a malicious or selective prosecution. He brought in a number of factors that have nothing to do with the 4 corners of the case. Number 1, going after Jim Comey's character. Number 2, talking about the speed with which he hopes that prosecutors act. Number 3, directing the attorney general, in effect, in a statement to bring a case. All of those factors suggest some level of leaning on the attorney general to bring the matter. Now, to be clear, most defendants come forward with selective prosecution claims and don't win because they don't have evidence like we just saw from the president here. This is remarkable, this level of, I don't know what the verb to use is, but suggestion to the Attorney General of the United States to bring a prosecution. You really don't see that. Also, talking about the speed with which he hopes that they act. There was one quote in your reporting earlier, Caitlin, that, prosecutors should just bring the best that they have and just get it to the grand jury and let the court sort it out. Well, that's not the standard for bringing a case. So he's really, every time he opens his mouth about the case, he's really jeopardizing his own prosecutor's chance of succeeding in the prosecution that he seems to want to happen.
Yeah, so it was notable today to hear what he said Saturday and then hear what he said today, where he was much more cautious in the Oval, saying, it's not up to me, it's up to Todd Blanche and Lindsay Halligan, not naming Pam Bondi. Elliot, Ellie, and Judge, it's great to have all of you here. Thank you for bringing us your expertise on this. And we're staying on top of tonight's breaking news. And I'm going to speak next with someone who is a former attorney for President Trump themselves and their view of the indictment of Director Coney.